Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. This week, the cigar of the week is the Asylum 13 Medulla.
But before we get to that, if you don't know us, my name is Chris, and I'm the whiskey expert and the cigar noob.
And I'm Adam. I'm the cigar expert, but the whiskey noob.
And as Adam mentioned, this week we're finding the perfect pairing for this Asylum 13 Medulla cigar. Quite a hefty cigar that I'm holding here right now, but I'm told by Adam that is Asylum. Like, they do big cigars, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Asylum is well known for their large ring gauges, large cigars, just all the above. This is a 6x60 cigar, which, I mean, probably 20 years ago, somebody would have seen this and been like, that is huge. But nowadays, there is a huge swing towards big cigars. A lot of people, it's more bang for your buck. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
right now, you look at the past, couple cigars we've had. One of them was the Aladino Robusto. That's gonna smoke in. I mean, I was almost done with it, and I think that was a 40-minute podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And this cigar could last you an hour 15, hour 30 if you're smoking it slow enough, even longer. I mean, this, if you're really talking and like have to relight every once in a while and having a great conversation, this could last you 2 hours. So you talk about the money you're investing for you guys out there in the Perfect Pairing Club that are getting these cigars in your Perfect Pairing, club packs. This one is more bang for your buck than the Aladino Robusto, theoretically.
I wonder, and I'm just completely making this up right now. I wonder if it has anything to do with golf getting really popular, because people want something. First of all, it's like sturdy, like you can hold it real easy, and second of all, it smokes for a super long time. So like if you're doing that, would almost last you 9 holes, depending on how quickly you smoke it.
Yeah, yeah, that's hard for me to say because personally, I like smaller ones for
Mm.
golf. I like ones that are like kind of just versatile, I guess you could say. Like if I want to like putt real quick, I got it in my mouth. But like
Mm-hmm.
this one's like in the
That's
way,
true.
even of your vision.
You're setting it
Um,
down for sure. if you
mhm,
gotta, if you gotta putt.
yeah, definitely. Otherwise, you're. I used to play pool a lot. I had a pool table in my college house, and I would smoke cigars inside there,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like go to set up like my pool cue, and I'd be like stick the cigar in my mouth, and then you just get your eyes just start melting from the
Yeah.
smoke. Same thing would happen when you're putting for sure.
Although you might be able to use this as a putter, it might be like a dual function there.
That's fair. That's fair. You don't need to buy any clubs.
It's
You
almost
get
long
their
enough.
exactly. You get their Asylum 9x90. That's your driver.
hmm
I can see it. I can see it.
Now
But
for
nonetheless, the thing before we get any
okay.
further, I will say what they do well, and I think the reason why Asylum has kind of pigeonholed this niche really well is the cigars smoke great. And that is what I've had the 9x90. And the ash, if you guys haven't seen that video of me reviewing it, I mean it was like 2 years ago, year and a half ago actually. Um, but my most popular video on YouTube is an ash fails video. It's got like 42 million views, so if you haven't seen it, I don't know, look up ash fails video. I'm probably the first one. I don't even know. I don't look at my own stuff, but if you look it up, you'll see in that video the ash actually falls on me, but it is nearly as long as this cigar, the ash.
Holy cow.
Like it was crazy. Like it was an incredible ash, and that is impossible to do on a large cigar. You know how many holes there could be in this cigar, gaps of air, gaps of like to get the tobacco to be properly distributed around the entire ring gauge of a 90 ring gauge cigar or even a 60 ring gauge cigar is
hmm
incredibly difficult. So that's where I think they've kind of stood out and made a name for themselves in the large cigar game.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And in case anybody heard it while you were talking, I want to address it. If you hear thunder and aggressive rain, that's coming from my side. So if this podcast cuts out for me, Adam, you go ahead and finish. I want all the listeners to know I love you all, but I have been swept away in a tornado because it just suddenly got crazy outside. So we'll see
Happens.
what happens. It happens. All right. This week's trivia question. I got to get to it. So this is another one of those like 300 level questions. This is a higher level. No, not higher level. This is specific. So you have to be into whiskey a little bit for it, but I think it's a fun one. And this is not sponsored by Barrell Craft Spirits. Please sponsor us. This question's about you. um, so one of the whiskeys that we have today is Barrell's Foundation Bourbon. What makes Barrell's Foundation Bourbon so special? Why was I personally so excited about this release? What sets it aside? There's something that's very specific that sets this aside from the rest of Barrell's portfolio, and that's all that I'll say.
Yeah, I'm gonna phone a friend. One of you guys listening out there,
Yeah.
give me a call. Help me. I don't know that one. So yeah.
Good. Hopefully it's a little bit of a tough one. I like I said, it's kind of specific, but I also do a lot of videos about Barrell and a lot of reviews and things. I like their products, if you haven't noticed from the seagrass, but there's something specific about that one.
Give it up about the seagrass, Chris. We all get it. You love it.
It's so tasty. Barrell, please sponsor us. I'm shamelessly throwing that in there.
That's fair.
All right, so
There's no shame.
noob review, right? I gotta throw this out there, and I am gonna say the name of the cigar. If you guys didn't listen to the last episode, we're gonna say the names of the cigars and the whiskeys more. So first of all, so you know what we're smoking and drinking, because for a while there we were just saying this one and that one. And second of all, if we make a clip out of this, it's like right there. I mean, that's super helpful too. So I will do my noob review though. So this Asylum 13 cigar. First couple puffs as I'm just getting into it. First of all, really nice draw. You mentioned the inconsistencies with big cigars, like it's hard to do. And this has a super nice draw. There's nothing in there that got plugged up or anything. Lighter palate. And I haven't had anything this light in a while. So I'm really struggling to nail down some specific notes. But it's more of like a light wood note. Less of the brown sugar, more of the white sugar, less of the like the dark chocolate, like almost none of that for me right now. Maybe a touch of an almond. That's about where I'm at with this.
Yeah, that is all fair. It's definitely something. I mean, that's the other piece of this is I mean, this is the first, I believe the largest cigar, I should say, that we've had, but the first
Yeah.
6x60. Which is becoming a very popular size. It's sometimes called Gordo and a bunch of different things. But I think some people look at a large cigar and they're like, that's going to kill you. But it's like, no, it depends if it's a light or a heavy cigar. Like, there's a big difference. Like, you smoke this, if you light it up as maybe a cigar beginner and you're like intimidated by the size, one, you are absolutely allowed to smoke half of it and put it down. That's okay. It's a big cigar. But also, don't be intimidated because of just the size and think it's going to knock you on your butt. That is absolutely not true. You can make a 100 by 100 that's a light Connecticut, like a very easy, simple smoke. And I think that's exactly what we have here. We have something that's very approachable. I think you talked about golf. It's very summery in terms of light. Like, it's the same thing with like craft beer, right? You don't like, I'm sure it's the same thing with heavy whiskeys. You don't grab a 125 proof in the middle of the summer. You don't grab a Guinness in the middle of the summer typically, and you don't grab a heavy Maduro in the middle of the summer. You like to grab some lighter cigars, and I think this one is very approachable, very simple on the palate. I think we're gonna see the complexity come out in the pairings, and that's what I'm excited about with this cigar. I think there's so much with a large ring gauge cigar, and I'm going to say it a million times, large ring gauge cigar, large ring gauge cigar. But with a large ring gauge cigar, what they also have is a lot of play in the blend. They can have a lot more different tobacco leaves in there. So I'm hopeful that we're going to see some complexity as we go through these pairings, that it's going to bring out different sides of the cigar.
Yeah, and I want to pause because that was a great point you made that I hadn't thought about, because I used to probably think this. I think a lot of people probably do. That's a really common, I think, misconception would be that this cigar is so big that it's going to knock me on my butt. But this Asylum 13 is bigger than any cigar we've had so far, and this is lighter and more approachable than a lot of the cigars that we've had recently. We've had some medium bodies. We've had some ones that have like a full body to them. This is very light, very approachable. You mentioned a summer cigar, and I could easily see somebody who's newer to it sees a huge cigar like this and is like, that's gonna knock me on my butt. But you make a great point. I think I actually had that misconception, which is why I wanted to pause on that. But I won't
I like
stall
it.
before we get to our pairings. I won't stall anymore because I'm actually
I'm
excited.
so excited. Yeah,
I
I'm
thought you
super
would be.
excited for number one.
So, pairing number one, I can't believe we haven't had it yet because Adam has told me so much of how good of a pairing it is. We have good old Dr. Pepper. For me, I actually have Diet Dr. Pepper, if I'm going to be entirely honest. But the good news is nice crack. Good Dr. Pepper crack there.
I'm a little fizzed. Anyways,
The good news is I know the profile of Diet a lot more than I know the profile of real Dr. Pepper because I usually drink Diet Pop, and everybody yells at me for it in my comments. But I have coined the term aspartame gives you superpowers because I think maybe it will if I keep drinking it. We'll see.
fair enough. But yeah, I mean, for what Chris said is absolutely true. It's my favorite non-alcoholic pairing that exists. A lot of people talk about cigars and coffee. I don't hate it. I think, yeah, sure, cigars go well more often with a cappuccino than, in my opinion, a black coffee, but that's my personal opinion. I'm also not a huge coffee guy. I drink a lot of it, but it's really an ends to a means, not because I love sipping coffee. So I'll kind of say like this is just my favorite pairing, but there's 23 different flavors in there. There's a lot going on. So Dr. Pepper flavor with a cigar, I think, is very. It's going to be very similar to what we had with the root beer a long time ago. If you guys missed that episode, we did pair some cigar. I don't remember exactly which one with root beer, but it is. I think the Dr. Pepper's heavy enough. Coke is all the Dr. Pepper root beer Coke. I think they're very similar, but I think Dr. Pepper has a little bit more cigar-ish taste in it.
Mm-hmm. I'll say like right off the bat, the Dr. Pepper is totally putting notes into this cigar, like elevating different notes. I'm already getting like a vanilla, maybe a touch of a cherry, and the cigar overall is like a little creamier. Like it's got that kind of creamy, sweet vibe going on that I wasn't catching before the Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, holy cow!
Mm-hmm.
Like the aftertaste on the cigar is like pure vanilla. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like I'm looking at it like did I buy a vanilla Dr. Pepper? Like
Right.
that was weird. That was really weird. It went like strawberry Dr. Pepper to vanilla Dr. Pepper after the cigar. That was super. I don't even know what was going on there.
That's a great way to put it. It kind of tastes like when you get it at like a gas station, you pump a couple shots of vanilla into it, like that vanilla flavor. This is since the root beer, the first non-alcoholic pairing I've had with any cigar, I think. And the root beer was, I've had a couple non-alcoholic pairings, but not many. So like this is new for me, and way more going on than I thought there would be. At least antagonistic. At least the cigar is changing a lot, but I haven't focused on the Dr. Pepper very much because I was pretty floored by how much flavor was coming through to the cigar. So I was focusing on that.
Right. When you're pairing, in my opinion, when you're pairing the Asylum 13 Medulla here with the Dr. Pepper, it is antagonistic. The Dr. Pepper is pretty much Dr. Pepper. I'm not getting a whole lot of different change in there, but that Asylum 13 Medulla is up front. It's getting elevated like I wanted it to in terms of just different notes and being complex. But then that aftertaste, I mean, it's so weird. The medulla really turns into like in your mouth, not as you're smoking it, but after the aftertaste turns into a strawberry Dr. Pepper and then a vanilla Dr. Pepper, and it is one of the weirdest. I can tell you, it is one of the weirdest, greatest, funniest, oddest things that has happened in a cigar pairing that I've ever seen. This is not typical. I want to say I love Dr. Pepper pairings with cigars. This is not the typical thing that I usually get. I don't know if it's because the medulla is lighter, that the Dr. Pepper is kind of maybe playing more with the cigar, but what an interesting pairing. I think the challenge is going to be, I can already see it. How do you compare this to something like the other two pairings that we have? That's going to be a super hard challenge in the rankings.
Yeah, that is going to be difficult. But I mean, this might be one of the most pure antagonistic pairings that we have had. The Dr. Pepper, I went back to it, not really changing. The cigar is like transformed. I mean, it's just elevating those vanilla creamy notes. You mentioned the berry a little bit in the beginning, right after it's finishing. You get like this berry and then this vanilla. Totally crazy pairing from a non-alcoholic beverage. I didn't see that coming. I'll be totally honest. If I was a betting man, I would have lost this bet. I did not think this was going to happen.
Last thing I'll say, I wish they could do cigar commercials because Dr. Pepper should do like some like commercial with this cigar pairing and be like berry blast to vanilla, and they could do this whole commercial. That would be awesome. But no, tobacco can't be in a commercial. So
Can we convince them to pay us? Is there a
now
way to
you're
do that?
talking.
Come on,
Now,
Dr. Pepper.
now I like where you're going. Asylum, pick up the phone.
This is the episode where I push the sponsors.
Apparently, yeah. How about
Shameless
we get
plug.
paid by Dr. Pepper? No, I'm just kidding. I don't
Hey,
think that would ever happen. But
that'd
I
be
love
sweet
it.
though. All right, moving on to pairing number 2. We have Barrell's Foundation. The reason for this trivia question. This is Barrell's 5-year bourbon. This is 100 proof, and it is a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys. Excuse me. I think we
That's not
both
Dr.
just
Pepper. We both just, that's the Dr. Pepper right there. We both just burped. Sorry,
yeah.
everybody on the audio.
Even more so than whiskey, man. Pop makes you burp, or soda, depending on where you are, makes you burp.
Love
I've got in
pop.
the habit of saying soda because more people say soda than pop. So
I think pop is actually dying. Even, I grew up in Ohio. Chris is in Ohio. So we
mhm.
both said pop. And
Yep.
I moved to Atlanta, obviously now, and like everybody says soda, and I just conformed. But even in the north, like I feel like people are saying soda more often. I feel like it's just kind of taking it, and I'm like, I've almost found myself saying pop more often because I'm like, no,
Yeah,
like it needs to live on. Like don't let pop die. I can't lose this war.
I like that. Maybe I need to stick with it moving forward. I'm saying pop from now on, and people will be like,
Yeah,
"What is he talking about?" Another one that's dying. Some people say Coke for everything, like for all pop, it's
I
Coke.
think that one's dead. But
That
that
is
was like
so
north,
confusing.
right? Like high Minnesota, high Michigan, Maine.
I
I
don't
think
know
that's what it
where.
was.
I don't know where. All I know is it's weird. Like,
It
how
is
do you
really
know
weird
what?
because
Can I get a Coke, please? Sure. Which one? Dr. Pepper. Like what?
yeah, yeah. You guys are crazy. Pop is normal.
Pop
Just
is
kidding.
normal. The bubbles pop. It makes sense. Like the bubbles are popping. It's pop.
Yeah,
I
what is
think.
soda? Yeah, I don't even know.
Good question. Why is it called soda? I don't
I
know.
just blew Chris's mind. But let's get back on topic. Your brain just like meow, and like shut down. You're just
Did you just hear
bro,
that?
bro, that was crazy.
I just had a heart attack on camera.
Holy crap!
I think.
I
I
thought it
mean,
happened outside. I thought like my shelf fell behind me or something.
dude, something had to have just gotten struck by lightning, like right outside my house.
There is no way. There's no way it didn't because I haven't heard any of the rain or anything, at least in my headphones. I don't know if you guys listening on the audio or YouTube even can hear it, but holy cow. That was a hell of a lightning strike.
That scared the crap out of me. Speaking of getting back on topic, all right, I'll come back in now, but whoa. Whoa.
Yeah, that was wild.
All right, so this is the bourbon we're drinking. No, I'm kidding. If you're not watching the video, I was shaking badly on purpose. Okay. Barrell's 5-year bourbon. It's a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys. It's 100 proof. I haven't even taken a sip of it yet. Usually I get lighter notes from it. It's only 5 years old. It's a little bit young. You get light vanillas, a light caramel, a little bit of an oak, but not a super charred oak. That's what I normally expect from this, and I've had it a few times. So I'm excited to see what happens with a lighter cigar. I'm hoping these two kind of play with each other because they both have those slightly lighter notes. But sometimes it does the opposite. So I have no idea what to expect here.
Off of my first back and forth with the Barrell Foundation and the Asylum 13 Medulla, I'm getting out of the cigar. I haven't gone back to the whiskey yet, but I took a decent little swig of the whiskey, went to the cigar. There is a little twanginess going on that originally was good, and then it like morphed into. I still have it on like the back of my palate. I don't really know what it is. I can't pinpoint it, but initially this seems like it's going to be twangy, but I am excited to go back to the whiskey and see if something's playing there that's going to be special. I think this may be one, like I said, there's a lot of different tobaccos in this cigar, or at least a lot of tobacco in general as well. Um, that every pairing is going to bring out probably a different side of this cigar. So I'm intrigued to keep going.
I'm with you. I totally agree with you. The Asylum 13 has got more of a twang. That's a great description. It's almost like maybe like a mesquite wood, like that type of a. Even if it's not mesquite, it's where there's like something different going on, like something not usual. And then you jump back to the Barrell Foundation, and I will say, jumping back to that, you get a smooth, sweet kind of caramel vanilla. It actually tones down. There's sometimes a little bit of a young bitterness to it. I even put that in my review of it. It tones that down and it makes it this kind of nice, sweet, easy drinker, in my opinion.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is a clash here.
Okay. Let's hear it.
I'm seeing a clash between this Asylum 13 Medulla and the Barrel Foundation. Something here is not gelling. Like going to the cigar, there was a bit of that twang. Going to the Barrel Foundation, it it almost, this is gonna sound really weird, but it almost felt like the whiskey was confused. Like it didn't know what it was trying to tell me on my palate. Like
Hmm.
it like gave me a certain flavor. They gave me a little bit of that caramel note you mentioned, and then it gave me a little bit of that twang that I had, and then it gave me like it was it really like that is I don't know how to better describe it. Like I know these are two weird things. The Asylum 13 with this pairing has a twang, and the Barrel Foundation with this pairing is confused. And that's how I feel about this right now. It just I feel like there's some sort of weird clashing thing going on, and I did not see that coming.
If we clip that properly and get the right adjectives, we can easily have one of those videos that you can't stop watching. And then you get to the end of it, and the comments are all, bro said everything without saying anything. Because this one's twangy, this one's confused. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But
Yep. Exactly.
the funny thing is, as I'm like having this tasting with you, I get what you're saying. At least with the twangy. For me, the Barrel Foundation, I think I get it. I for me, it has gotten softer. It has, and I think maybe why it seems confused to you is because it got softer a bit, but there's still a little bit of this bite, this like little bit of spice, not the bitterness I mentioned, like the young bitterness, but right. I don't know the locations of the palate where you're supposed to find all this stuff. I've heard that's a little bit of a myth. For me, though, for sure, right on the sides of my tongue, like by your salivary glands, I get this little tingle at the end. And maybe the sweetness with that tingle is what's seeming confused to you, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I think you're accurate on the sense of it's approachable with a little bit of that, for lack of a better word, harshness on top.
Mm-hmm.
Like and I think the flavor. I don't know if maybe the Dr. Pepper played something to do with this. I'm not sure, but I doubt it. Um, I don't know. I
That
think it was
could
just
be.
unexpected. But here's what I'll say. Last thing I'll say about this one is the Barrel Foundation is a specific flavor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it is, and I think that's why it's so popular. You know, it's so unique and it's so specific and different and good. I
Mm-hmm.
love it by itself, and I think maybe I was expecting this cigar to play up to where it was. Like it's only 100 proof, but it always I feel like it's more. It almost like drinks like 110. Like
Mm-hmm.
it feels a little bit elevated in my opinion.
I agree with you. It's got kind of a kick to it. Yeah.
Okay, well that's good to know for my whiskey noob opinion. Um,
You're spot on.
but I think maybe that's where the disconnect might be for me, is the medulla is softer, than
Hmm.
I was expecting it to be since the last time I've had it. And this one's more elevated, and I think maybe that's where the disconnect is.
I could see that. Yep, I could totally see that. Now that being said, let's jump into number three because I'm excited to try this one. So number three, let me apologize to everybody who wants to run to their local liquor store and buy this because you can't. Excuse me, Dr. Pepper's still coming back to bite me. Pairing number three is Jack Daniels American Single Malt. This is an international bottle. I don't know if it's just international, if it's just in duty free stores. It might just be in duty free stores. So you can see the duty free stores and you can snag it if you want to try it. My review of this initially was it is a touch overpriced, but I would pay the overprice because it's like unique and novel and something different. So that's the way that I initially reviewed it. If you're drinking it right now, I'm excited to try it because Adam just made a face.
Yeah, no, that I've never had this before for everybody out there. Um, Whoa. For an
Yeah.
American single malt, that is not what you think.
Not at all. And that's actually why I wanted to have it on the show. I was like, I know it's hard to find, but it's so weird that I want to know what happens with a cigar, especially because if somebody's traveling and they see it, then they can try it with cigars as well. So this is an American single malt that is finished in Oloroso sherry casks, and it has a heavy Oloroso presence, but then it doesn't have too much of that bitterness that I don't like. Sometimes when things are over sherried, I always say it reminds me of licking an envelope, and I get that sometimes. And this doesn't have too much of that. It has strong sherry influence without having that. So I was dying to try it with a cigar, which is why we're doing that right now.
Here's what I'll say about this pairing. Absolutely in the Jack Daniels American single malt, I am getting the sherry. The sherry is very prevalent in that side. But when you go from the Jack Daniels American single malt to the Asylum 13 Medulla, the Asylum 13 Medulla is doing exactly what I was expecting and playing. I think it's bringing out probably a different side of this cigar than the Barrell Foundation was, and it is the side that I think we saw with the Dr. Pepper. There is something in this cigar that is willing to play with sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Mm-hmm.
my statement. There's something in this cigar. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why, but there's something in this cigar that's willing to play with sweetness. So if I was going to give some sort of blanket statement about the pairings with the Asylum 13 Medulla, I would say find something in a finished cask that is Armagnac, sherry, port, any sort of wine, things like that that'll really work. Find your Dr. Peppers. I think a great pairing with this cigar would be cream soda. I think if you're
Mm.
really into sweetness, you're gonna that I think would just explode in flavor, and so that's where I think this cigar is because of the Dr. Pepper and because of this Jack Daniels American Single Malt, but also because of the way it played with the Barrel Foundation. It in the lack thereof playing with the Barrel Foundation.
Mm-hmm. I think you're spot on, man. When you jump to the cigar, it starts off, there's like it captures that sweetness, just like it did with the Dr. Pepper. The Asylum 13 it is like a net that grabs this sweetness, and you get almost like a deep red wine right off the bat. That sherry really pops out. And then on the retrohale, this is weirdly specific, but I started to get almost like a pecan or like a candied nut. Like it brought this totally different sweetness that I wasn't noticing before and really brought it to the forefront on the retrohale.
I would say pecan pie.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Because that sweetness, again, I think the sweetness is forefront, and that
Mm-hmm.
I I can 100% say, as the cigar expert supposedly here, uh, I was wrong in the anticipation of what this cigar was going to do in pairings. I did say it was going to play, right? I did say it
Mm-hmm.
was going to play and have a lot of play. It's true, but I think only on the sweet side. I would be intrigued to go, in this row behind me and go through some more true whiskeys and see like, okay, let me just put like some typicals, right? Some Woodford Reserve, some Bullet Bourbons, some some things that don't have any sort of finishes to it. Even something I would be super intrigued what it would do with like the Midnight Mayhem from Filmland that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Old line Navy strength. those sort of places, I would be super intrigued because I think those two, if it didn't pair well with those two, I would know for a fact. Okay, nothing heavy. Nothing
Right.
heavy. Stay away from heavy with this cigar. I think it's already saying that, but I think you'll see it in my ratings. I'm not saying no yet to anything heavy, but I have a gut feeling that anything really heavy, whiskey wise, proof wise, whatever, is not going to play well with this cigar.
That doctor, right when I went to talk, that Dr. Pepper got me. No, I
You're
agree
still
with
you
you
still
though.
got the yips from the thunderstorm, man.
Yeah, that's what it is.
that's
Dude.
that.
Whew. No, I'm I'm with you though, man. I totally agree. I think anything with a sweetness. Oh my gosh, one of the cigar blends that we've had on here so far. Oh, I would just love to try that. All those different finishes, seeing what happens with this cigar. But anything that's just the straight up oak, spice, those sorts of things. I totally agree with you. I don't know if it would play quite as nicely because the Barrell Foundation, as I mentioned, it's got kind of a lighter, for a bourbon, a lighter palate in terms of the type of flavors. So like
Mm-hmm.
it's not charred oak, it's like raw oak or young oak, whatever you want to call it. It's not brown sugar, it's white sugar, but it's still punchy. It still has that spice to it. And I think that's what's just not playing with this. You need something that's got a sweet base to it. Last statement on this, the Jack Daniels with the Asylum 13, is the Asylum 13 got sweeter. It got all those notes that we talked about. And then the Jack Daniels, the malt kind of went away. Like it tastes like the finish right now for me. I'm getting that sherry, maybe even like a brandy or a red wine. It's got this fruity, sweet kind of white sugar to it. Not a lot of a malty, grainy type of a taste to it anymore.
Yeah, I was hoping you were going to talk a little bit more because I was going back between the Dr. Pepper and that Jack Daniels American Single Malt, and I kind of made my decision on my rating on the Dr. Pepper, and I just took a sip of the American Single Malt, and I was like, okay, Mr. Jack Daniels American Single Malt, what are you trying to tell me here with this cigar? And it's exactly what I kind of brought up in the beginning. They're so versatile. Like you're looking at Dr. Pepper and Jack Daniels American Single Malt. Those are not things anyone would ever categorize in any similar category besides maybe if you were like trying to pinpoint sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but not really ever.
Right.
Like maybe actually, I think it would be a great mixer, but you would never mix Jack Daniels American Single Malt. Actually,
Right.
at least I wouldn't anticipate you would because you can never find it. But if you did, I think, yeah, little Jack and Dr. Pepper here, but Jack Daniels American Single Malt. I think that would probably taste pretty good, and I think it'd be a damn good pairing with this Asylum 13 Medulla. But trying to categorize them two and rate them two and rank them two in different categories or levels is very challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's really weird because they're so different. We've had this issue with like whiskeys with tequila, and when we had the coffee and the root beer, it's like it's so different. That being said, this I would say is probably the most impressed I've been by a non-alcoholic pairing. I mean, this is super interesting. So I'll go ahead and throw my rankings out there. Honestly, I have in first place, as I had hoped, I have the Jack Daniels American Single Malt. In second place, I have the Dr. Pepper. And in third place, I have the Barrell Foundation.
I I have the man. It is so
Mm-hmm.
hard to compare the first two, man. It's so hard to compare the first two. I still don't have my number. I'm gonna take one last sip, even if it's crickets out there. I'm gonna take my last little drop of American Single Malt. Then you'll get my rankings.
Okay, don't let me influence you. I'm gonna say what I'm thinking, and this is another one where our bias plays into it. This is subjective. For me, the thing that I liked about the American Single Malt that put it a step above was that nuttiness. That pecan pie was such a nice note. And it wasn't like, oh, you have to retrohale because it's so subtle. It was like when you retrohale, it's right there. Like you notice it right away. And I even me being a cigar noob, right away I knew there was something different. It took me a while to figure out what that was. but I liked that. I thought, man, that's really unique. And so that's what put the Jack Daniels a step ahead for me.
That's fair. For me, so the reason why I needed another second is because I needed to figure out. I like, as we like to stay true to ourselves, I like to do the ratings first before the rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I knew for instance, the American single malt from Jack Daniels was going to be higher. I knew it was going to be a higher rating,
Mm-hmm.
or sorry, ranking. I was trying to figure out how much higher it was going to be. But here's what I've got. I've got with the Asylum 13 Medulla, which I'm almost in the second third, by the way. I'm probably smoking this thing a little too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it may be because I love the flavor with these two whiskey, or with the Dr. Pepper and the whiskey, and I'm, just excited about trying the different flavors. But so with the Asylum 13 Medulla, I've got at number one the Jack Daniels American Single Malt. At number two, I've got the Dr. Pepper, and at number three, I've got the Barrell Foundation. Just like you did. Why? I'll get into my ratings right now if you're good to flow straight into it.
Yeah, go for it.
American Single Malt, I've got at 8.2. The reason I was so curious about the American Single Malt is because I feel like 8 is this. We've never even talked about 8 as being, we've talked about 9 as a guarantee that you should
Mm-hmm.
try it again. Anything below 5 is never try it. I wouldn't do it again. Um, 8 is like, I'd highly recommend it. And there's not a lot that's going to be better. And I was playing with that and the Dr. Pepper and trying to figure out how much room there is probably to play. And that's the reason why I gave it an 8.2. So I've got 8.2 for the pairing with the Asylum 13 Medulla and the Jack Daniels American Single Malt. I've got 7.9 with the Dr. Pepper. It was good. It didn't do enough for me to go crazy. And I know the potential of Dr. Pepper. I like it with a Maduro cigar. There's more to play, more to be had with a Dr. Pepper. So that's where I land at that. Now, going all the way down at the bottom with Barrell Foundation, as hard as it is to say something negative with the sentence of Barrell Foundation even involved, or the Asylum 13 Medulla, which I love, I've got to give it a 5.5. I think it just didn't work. I don't. The reason I gave it a 5.5 is because I can see your perspective
Mm-hmm.
in liking the play. So I wouldn't say never. I would say try it if you love, love, love Barrel Foundation, or try it if you love, love, love Asylum 13 Medulla. But if you aren't obsessed with either one, I think you're going to be a little bit disappointed like I was.
Yeah, I'm actually right there with you. I mean, I'm a little bit off, but we're pretty close. I had the Barrel Foundation at 5 point, or no, you had 5.5. Sorry, I had it at 6. I'm still shook up from that lightning, I guess. So I had it at 6, and I for the same reason. I mean, 5.56. You're in the same ballpark where it's like I would drink this. I would not be mad if somebody handed it to me, but it's not the first one I'm gonna reach for. I liked how sweet it got though. Then I had the Dr. Pepper. I went a little bit above. I had it at an 8.2. And you mentioned the potential of Dr. Pepper. I don't. I was floored by it. This is my first time pairing it with anything. And I was like, dude, this is cool. For being non-alcoholic, the flavor that I got from this was awesome. And then I put the Jack Daniels American Single Malt at 8.8 because for me, that pecan pie note, oh my gosh, that was so nice. I really, really enjoyed it. And so I put that in an 8.8.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that American single malt, there was a lot of play. So I can see exactly where you're going, and that's why I was so hesitant on trying to figure out where it would go. At the end of the day, the Asylum 13 Medulla, also the other side, I know has a lot more to offer, and there's something that is probably going to bring out the medium bodied note. Not too much
Mm-hmm.
sweetness, not too much, like, maybe it's an Irish whiskey. I'm not sure what it
Yeah.
is, but everybody out there, if you're in the Discord, and well, if you're not in the Discord, what are you doing? But you got to get in the Perfect Pairing Podcast Discord, first of all. But if you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord. Let us know what you're pairing with this cigar. If
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have an opportunity to have this cigar, make sure you go, because you're not a part of the Perfect Pairing Club, make sure you go grab a 3-pack on shopdreamercigars.com, because now we're selling limited 3-packs of these cigars. So if you missed out, you can go ahead and grab some after the podcast, but there's very limited amounts. So make sure you grab it quickly as we release this episode. And then let us know what your pairings are, because I think this is one of those where we're not going to hit money pairings every single time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be really hard to figure out of a 3 pairing lineup what's going to be great with a certain cigar. So everybody out there, you need to help us figure out the best pairings for these cigars. We, as much as we would love to, we cannot have 20 whiskeys and one cigar on this episode, because we would be dead.
Yeah, that would get really entertaining for a while, and then really not entertaining by the end of the episode. There'd be like a peak and then a hard drop off, and then it would be a boring episode to listen to.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Now I'm gonna roll right into the trivia, unless you have anything else you want to say about these pairings.
Nope, absolutely. I'm intrigued to know.
All right, so the trivia for today was, what makes Barrell's Foundation Bourbon such an interesting release? What set it aside from everything else? The thing that sets Barrell Foundation aside is, up to this point, up until they released Foundation, all of Barrell's releases were cask strength, barrel proof. They were whatever proof they came out of the barrel, that was what went into the bottle. Foundation was Barrell's first attempt to say, we want to break into a market that's not quite as expensive by proofing down to 100 proof. And that's what makes the bottle a little bit less expensive than Barrell's other things, which for me was super exciting. First of all, because they are proofing down a little bit and accessing a new group of people. Second of all, because they were working on getting into a less expensive category, which we see so many distillers go the opposite direction. So I was excited that they're like, we're going to make an attempt to put something a little bit more affordable. And that's what sets it aside.
That's fair. That is definitely an interesting anecdote. I'm good with that.
Thank you.
That's fair enough. I learned something new today.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Well, this was an interesting one. I'm definitely interested to see what everybody else out there has to say about not only the cigar, but different pairings. So, guys, please make sure you put in your ratings in the Discord. If you're not a part of the Perfect Pairing Club, please join so you can try all these different cigars and have pairings with us. You can get 10% off just for listening. PPP10 gives you 10% off not only the Perfect Pairing Club, but also the 3-packs that we're now selling behind these Cigar of the Weeks. So you cigars of the week, or whatever you want to say. However it is, we've had a lot of whiskey today.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, 10% off for whatever you want on shopdreamercigars.com. Sneak peek, including all of the other custom celebrity cigars we're up to. So grab your 10% off. And Chris, this another successful pairing.
Another fun one, man. Cheers.
Cheers.